I've always wondered why there wasn't like an alternative for the ads. Or why can't I just have a subscription to Facebook, for example?
Yeah, well, okay, so who gets this really well are OTT providers, like streaming media options, right? Yeah. So typically you have a couple models when it comes to OTTs, SVOD, TVOD, or AVOD, okay, and more acronyms for you. But TVOD is transactional, video on demand, which is every time I want to watch something, I pay for it.
Yeah.
Cool, once-off transaction, brilliant, right? It's a little bit hard to scale. It's easy in theory, but hard to scale. Then you've got SVOD, which is subscription video on demand. So I'll pay a monthly fee at a reduced rate, longer term commitment, right? So say I want to watch the EPL for 3 years, I get a 3-year subscription, and I know that I'm subsidized, I'm not getting ads, which can also take away a little bit of the experience. Then you've got AVOD, advertising video on demand. So I don't want to pay a monthly subscription. I don't want to pay a once-off transaction because it's high in terms of that interaction, but I don't mind getting an ad every now and then, right? But there's these various models that are going to be available to Web3 publishers.
Yeah.
And it could be also an interesting option when you're talking about gated communities, NFT ownership, right? So you've sold this NFT, it's on an annual basis. Maybe that becomes a subscription model. If you think that you're going to sell one launch of an NFT series or collection for the rest of time, and that's a gated community, and for those owners you get the best content in the world, and no one sells that, what are you going to do from revenue perspective? You're going to sit there and go, oh, do we need to do another launch? And then you're diluting the value, right? But maybe it could be based on a subscription model.
So you buy a token of sorts and you pay a monthly subscription for that?
Absolutely. Why not? The technology is available.
Because I thought about, let's like an example that everyone keeps mentioning, but the Bored Ape Yacht Club, that's a club that you buy a ticket to by owning the Bored Ape NFT, right? But that's a one-off. It's pretty high.
It's a one-off, but now you can also start talking about DeFi, or as in you can now start renting your NFTs out, right? So it's a secondary source of income. Now the barrier of entry on Bored Ape is it's incredibly high, right? The average person is not going to be able to afford a JPEG of a monkey for $300,000, right? But if I own this, if I was lucky enough to be an early adopter, maybe I could rent that out, and then other people can experience what this is. Maybe I don't want to go to a Bored Ape event this month. Maybe I'm busy. Maybe I'm not feeling well. But I can make that JPEG earn money for me.
So you can make your own subscription model.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is interesting, right? But then I think, taking Bored Ape as probably the benchmark, which is probably not what we should be referencing all the time, but as a benchmark, as the biggest kind of NFT project out there, they're licensing the artwork. People have their own fast food outlets. They're developing clothing and all that kind of stuff. And
music videos,
etc. But the IP around that is still very, very murky water, right? Like I went to a flea market 2 months ago, and there I was presented with all these pictures of Bored Apes. Those aren't licensed, right? Those aren't licensed. But anyway, so IP is getting into an interesting where you can basically license it if that is the option. But not for us to solve in this particular discussion, I think.
No.
No one's really also talking about data coverage or data cost implications around all this. So what Facebook did very well globally was they did all these partnerships with telcos. So they automatically, they loaded the app on the mobile device that was sold, but then they also said every time someone uses this app, it's no data. We'll cover the data cost. Now, there's an opportunity for advertisers right there. So if you come into my experience, I will give you, there will be exposure to adverts and a call to action and all that kind of stuff. So the options there is opt-in. But if you're in my experience, I will cover your data cost. And what does that do then? It drives more traffic to what I'm creating, which is basically a space for people to hang out. And I know that if it's going to become a very competitive landscape, which it will be, because there's going to be many of these, immersive experiences out there. Hey, come to me because 1, I'm covering your data cost. 2, there's more people here. It's going to be fun. And 3, we kind of understand our audience.
That makes sense.
And I've said this a couple of times, and I'm pretty vocal online. I've said this a couple of times. I think Web3 kind of gets lost in its own idealism sometimes and goes, it's decentralized and it's free for all and all that kind of stuff. And we're going to give out, whitelists and all that. How are they going to create money? How are they going to actually build a business from this? How are they going to reinvest that money back into the platform and R&D? They still need revenue streams to do that. They need real revenue streams. They need customers. They need less churn because unfortunately, the NFT audience typically are flippers, right? So they're going to go in there. They're not in there for the long run. They're in there for the profit gain. So that's going to have to also take in consideration. But models or businesses rather that understand the blend between Web 2 and Web 3 are going to be the ones that make it.